Grace Torres sat in her usual spot, far left corner of the rusty fork grill, just beneath the clock that always ran 5 minutes slow. It was the kind of place where the coffee burned your tongue, and the vinyl booths creaked if you leaned back too hard. But Grace liked it that way. Predictable. Simple. Safe. She wore her Marine Corps pin on the collar of a faded work shirt and rolled silverware into napkins with the quiet precision of someone trained to assemble rifles under fire. The manager gave her short shifts during lunch rush. Nothing too heavy. She never asked for more. Grace was 45, a former staff sergeant who'd served 2 tours in Fallujah. The last one had taken her left leg and a good chunk of the trust she once had in the world. Her wheelchair squeaked slightly every time she shifted weight, but she preferred it to the prosthetic. It was honest. Her hands, though calloused, moved with a kind of grace you didn't expect from someone who'd seen that much sand, blood, and noise. Most days that was enough. Customers here rarely bothered her. Some nodded respectfully. Others avoided eye contact like her missing leg made them uncomfortable. Grace didn't mind. She wasn't here to be noticed, just to keep busy. A worn leather wallet sat in her coat pocket, holding a single photo, her unit before the blast. Her smile in that image was wider than any she'd given in years. She hadn't taken it out in a long time. Didn't need to, until today. Because today, the piece she'd stitched together with quiet corners and second-hand uniforms was about to be ripped open. The diner door slammed open. 3 men stepped in. Boots, heavy jackets, leather vests patched with names like Tank, Goose, and Blade. Their laughter hit first, rough, sharp, the kind meant to claim space whether it was given or not. Tank spotted Grace almost immediately. "Well, look what we got here," he grinned, nudging his buddies. "Someone roll in from the VA," Goose chuckled. "Nah, that's Combat Barbie. Bet she's just here for the sympathy tips." Grace didn't rise to it. She kept folding napkins, calm and steady, but the insults carried weight in a place where no one stood up. Blade leaned on the counter, pounding the bell. "Hey, we getting menus or just staring at the help?" Grace wheeled herself over, posture straight. "Would you gentlemen like today's special?" she asked, voice flat but controlled. "Sure thing, soldier girl." Tank smirked. His voice carried too loud for the size of the room. Goose added, "Funny they let people like you serve food. Ain't that against some health code?" Grace placed menus one at a time, measured and controlled. She rolled away. From the booth behind them, someone snorted. Blade stretched, taking up space. "Maybe she's here for combat training." Lesson 1, how to ignore your betters. The cracks in Grace's silence were starting to form. Grace rolled toward the coffee maker, unshaking hands grasping a new pot. Her wheelchair pushed gently against the counter as she filled the cup. Attention focused, breathing regulated. Raucous laughter erupted again behind her. Tank had something new to comment. He always did. "You know what I never understood?" he yelled. "Why they ever began letting women into combat just hinders everyone," Goose chimed in. She likely sat behind a desk typing up reports and referred to it as war. Grace didn't look around. She didn't need to. Then Blade jumped up and trailed after, going as if he'd been challenged. "You deaf?" "Soldier girl," he slurred. "We're addressing you." Grace looked over her shoulder, not fear planning. Blade was sloppy, larger but unblooded. A threat you steer clear of unless you have to. He moved closer. Then he reached out and took the handles of her wheelchair. No warning. No asking permission. Grace didn't even have time to think before he gave the chair a vicious yank, pushing it forward. The front wheel caught on a table leg. The tray went flying from her lap. Hot coffee spilled down her arm. A fork bounced across the floor. Then, there was the sound Grace hadn't heard in years, her own body hitting the floor, hard, her prosthetic flexed, grotesquely. Agony shooting through her hip as metal dug into bone. The diner went numb. The busboy halted in mid-step. The waitress gasped but did not budge. A couple by the window gazed into their beverages. No one assisted. Blade chuckled. So did Tank and Goose. lower in tone, nastier now fulfilled. On the ground, Grace remained motionless. Coffee had penetrated her jeans. Her wallet was open on the ground. Out came a worn photo. Her platoon in the desert, grinning in the sun. On the back, written in marker, "She carried us every damn time." Grace did not weep. She slowly pushed herself up. She was not weak, but the instant required it. Steady hands, locked jaw, regulated breath. No one stood up to assist. The bikers sat back, smirking. Grace pushed her chair back into place with a single decisive movement. Sat back down again, saturated and quiet. Her Marine Corps pins sparkled among the coffee spots. By the front window stood a boy of about 9, whispering, "Dad, is that woman a soldier?" His father, middle, aged, jacket pocketed with campaign pins, sat in silence. Desert Storm. 2nd Marine Division. He didn't respond immediately. He glanced at Grace, her firm hands, her tight jaw, the picture on the ground. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he stood up slow and steady, walked out, and took his phone. "Yeah," he said. "This is Sergeant Daniels. I am calling to report something, not official, personal civilian terrain, but it involves one of our own." He paused. "You're going to want to send a team, trust me." Inside, Grace sat still in her corner, adjusting her sleeve. Her hands brushed her chest long enough to press against her heart. She didn't know it yet, but they were already on the way. 30 minutes went by. The bikers had gotten louder, more at ease, as if nothing had occurred. Tank signaled for a refill. Goose spun a butter knife. Blade slouched back with his boots on the table, laughing too boisterously whenever anyone dared to glance in his direction. Grace remained in her corner. She did not serve. She did not speak. Her shoulders were straight, her hands clasped neatly in her lap, tension against something unseen. The picture was back in her wallet, but the spots on her uniform persisted, and then came the sound. Tires crunching on gravel, deceptively deep, slow, not your ordinary car outside. A green SUV with military markings pulled up quietly, dust swirling around its tires. The Marine Corps emblem sparkled on the side. It idled right in front of the diner. Engine purring, quiet, authoritative. Inside, the commotion ceased. The door opened with meticulous military swing. 3 Marines entered. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. The first, a master sergeant, barrel-chested, gray, haired, walking with a well-worn cane, his gaze swept the room like scanning a perimeter. Behind him, a younger Marine, tall and clean-cut, propelling an empty wheelchair. The third, a woman captain, ribbons and combat medals glinting in the fluorescent light. Her very presence shifted the air. The diner held its breath. The bikers stiffened. Goose let his knife slip from his hand. Tank blinked as if he didn't comprehend. Blade leaned back in his chair. The master sergeant halted beside Grace's table. Shoulders braced, he came to a perfect salute. Staff Sergeant Torres, his tone gravel and steel. "Excuse our tardiness." Grace's body reacted before her mind. She saluted back, crisp and firm. For the first time that day, her eyes flashed, not fear recognition, respect. The captain approached, eyes locked on Grace, serene, but every sentence weighed heavily. "We had a call from one of our own. He told us a decorated Marine was publicly harassed on civilian terrain." Her gaze shifted, slowly, intentionally, to the biker's booth. Tank clenched his jaw. Goose dropped his head. Blade swallowed. The captain went on. "And that physical attack was involved." Grace shook her head. "It is nothing." But the master sergeant interrupted her, loud for all to hear. "With respect, Staff Sergeant, it is not nothing. Nobody touches one of ours. Not in combat. Not in peace. Not ever." The young Marine moved forward, eyes fixed on the bikers, his voice calm, firm. "Staff Sergeant Torres led our unit through Fallujah. She pulled 3 men from a burning Humvee. I was one of them." Grace looked up, awareness dawning. "Private Jenkins," she breathed. He nodded. "Corporal now, ma'am, thanks to you." In the counter booth, a sound the boy, Tommy, rose slowly. His father stood by him, a small nod exchanged between them. Across the diner, an older man in a Korean war cap stood, his silent salute. A woman by the door stood. Then two National Guardsmen in plain clothes. In half a second, half the diner stood. Back straight, shoulders squared. A wall of silent solidarity. The bikers contracted in their seats. They didn't. For the first time since they walked in. They didn't own the room. Grace did. Without raising her voice, without getting out of her chair. A week hence, the sign outside was not the same anymore. The rusty metal that had previously proclaimed Rusty Fork Grill had given way to a freshly painted deep navy blue wooden board, Homefront Cafe, where respect is always on the menu. Things were changing internally as well. Quietly but irrevocably. The back wall had a framed salute of local veterans, pictures, unit designations, years of service, some in fatigues, some in dress blues, but all gazing straight ahead like memorials to sacrifice. The booth where the bikers sat, vacant, not because anyone excluded them, but because no one wanted to occupy it no more. Grace continued to arrive daily afternoons, still folded napkins with the same silent precision, but no longer concealed beneath her collar was her Marine Corps pin. She displayed it openly, and on the back of her wheelchair was taped a miniature American flag patch, proud, but worn. Customers paused to acknowledge her now. Some expressed gratitude, others merely nodded, eyes falling upon the plaque over her booth. Reserved for those who served, all gave some gave more. Dave, the manager who had once frozen behind the counter, had also changed. He came to work in pressed shirts now, a tie secured with a small flag. He had hired 2 more vets that week, one for the kitchen, one for weekends. Melissa, the young waitress, inquired about military ranks between tables. She was taught the distinction between staff sergeant stripes and captain bars. She was taught what not to ask. Lessons that were taught gently, and the Marines. They returned. Every Thursday at 1800 hours punctually, the green SUV arrived. Sergeant Wilson, Captain Rodriguez, Corporal Jenkins. They sat with Grace Sans speeches, sans formality, coffee, silence, and memory. What began as one moment of cruelty had grown. A diner reborn, a town reminded, a woman no longer invisible. Grace didn't smile much, but when she did, like now, hearing Jenkins spin some half-truth from Fallujah, it hit all the way to her eyes. It was evening, the sun dropping behind the Montana hills, when the door opened once more. A young man intervened, barely more than high school age, ramrod, straight in a new army uniform, cap gripped tightly in both hands, eyes wide and hesitant. He stood as if he wasn't certain he belonged. Grace saw it immediately. She wheeled forward, flag patch shining in the sunset. "First deployment?" she asked in a soft voice. He nodded. "Leaving tomorrow morning, ma'am." She waved at the vacant chair by her table. "Sit. Coffee's not bad. Company's better." He hesitated. I wouldn't want to intrude." "You're not intruding, soldier," Grace said with a calm smile. "You're continuing a tradition." As he sat, Sergeant Wilson raised his cup. No words, just a silent toast around the diner. Veterans lifted their mugs, some with trembling hands, others sharp in posture despite the years. No one spoke. They didn't need to. The message was clear. You are noticed. You are part of us. You will never be alone. Since that day, the town was different. Grace was asked to give a talk at the local high school. She explained to the students what the uniform actually equaled. Not war, not glory, but discipline, meaning, and bearing others when they can't bear themselves. Business owners began to offer discounts to veterans without being asked. The town council passed an ordinance for a memorial in the square, a black stone with plain words etched in silver. "To all who served with honor, and those who stood together." The bikers, they never came back. Word had it that Jack lost his job, something to do with a video, something to do with conduct in public. Grace never questioned. She had more pressing things to worry about. Like the young female soldier who now showed up every Sunday and inquired about basic training. Or the Vietnam veteran who finally wore his medals once more after 40 years. Outside the diner, the Marine SUV would too often sit in the light of fading day. A piece of paper stuck to its window said, "We always come back for those who never quit." And inside, among silence, coffee, and kin, Grace Torres finally felt at home. Her hands still folded napkins with precision. Her flag patch still wore on her chair. But now, when she smiled, it wasn't out of habit. It was genuine. Because she knew. She was no longer invisible. She was respected, and her legacy would live on. If you think that no veteran should ever have to stand alone, comment respect and share their story.